Mi nombre es Mónica Tentori. I am Monica Tentori.
Willkommen zu UbiComp ISWC 2020. Mein Name ist Christoph van Laarhoven.
Benvenuti a UbiComp ISWC 2020. Io sono Nadir Weibel e sono uno dei General Chair di quest'anno.
Goedenamiddag en welkom op UbiComp ISWC 2020. En mijn naam is Christoph van Laarhoven.
Bienvenue à UbiComp 2020. Je m'appelle Nadir Weibel and welcome to UbiComp.
And we are general co-chairs of UbiComp ISWC 2020. We cannot believe this day has finally arrived. We are thrilled, excited, but at the same time, we are curious about how this virtual experiment will go. We thank you all for embarking with us into this experience, and we promise that no matter what, it will be one to remember. So welcome to the first all virtual UbiComp ISWC conference. We have worked very hard in putting together for you an interactive and engaging program, and we place a special emphasis in provide you with spaces to help you network as if we were face-to-face. We would like to thank you, our silver sponsor Google, our bronze sponsor Microsoft and Intel, and our technical sponsors and supporters for their financial support. Next slide, please. It took a village to organize UbiComp ISWC 2020. We do not have words and have enough time to individually thank all these amazing researchers that have been involved in this organization. We all care about this community so much, and we have been working super hard for this conference for around 2 years. During this time, we hope that we were able to create an academic family that has gone through so many good times together. Our world is going through a difficult time. And some of you had to change your role to help us turn a physical conference into a virtual one and accommodate the rapidly changing and always demanding needs of organizing a conference like UbiComp and ISWC. Your unlimited energy and commitment had kept us going, and it was amazing. We are so proud of you. And hopefully our paths will continue to intersect in the near future. Thank you.
Right, so about a year ago, straight after the 2019 conference in London, we geared up to prepare a full program for this year. So I looked at ways to quantify our buzzing activity from then on. And I found that the unique number of mails through the general chairs, and Nadir in particular, and the Slack messages that started and afterwards that passed my inbox show nicely that we were ramping up, preparing for the 2020 conference. We had weekly Zoom meetings ever since September, and we were feeling really confident. We were identifying already venues, the hotels, the restaurants. We prepared for making the conference really accessible. And our workshop chairs already had selected 12 workshops, and deadlines for all tracks were posted and advertised. But then COVID-19 happened. Now, first here in Europe, a few weeks later in the US, and a little bit later in Mexico. And we were just as shell-shocked as the rest of the world, not knowing really whether this pandemic would fizzle out by September or not. And as you can see in the graph, we were trying to stay optimistic, created a plan B, but essentially we were quite inactive for a few months thereafter, and our momentum was for a while gone. Now, luckily, this didn't last very long, and we went in the past months full out, supported by our brilliant team of chairs, which you saw on these earlier slides. Now, one of our first concerns that we had back then was how to organize this and plan for the budget in an appropriate way. I cannot stress enough that we did take a little bit of a gamble there, because even by organizing a virtual conference, the budget is quite substantial. With, for instance, publication costs, paying for the servers, all the things that we already spent in the process in the past 1.5 years have to be paid for. And calculating with a similar amount of registrations in previous years is a little bit dangerous, but we just did that. We hope that we could drive the fees down as much as possible without going in the red. by giving especially the students a very low fee. So how did this work? Well, it was nerve-wracking. Looking at the charts of ACM that was providing us with previous year's registrations, it was already September, and we were nowhere near last year's performance or our goals that we had set out. But just a few days later, we finally started to catch up. And what happened then, Nadir? I think you should tell them.
Well, right after that, as you can see, we actually broke last year's record, and we went over, what we planned, and just a few days before the conference, we were able to get to the numbers we were hoping, and even more than that. So we are really excited to announce that this year's UbiComp is actually the best UbiComps ever in terms of attendance. So we have a record registration, as of this morning, just a couple of hours ago, we have 874 people registered to the conference, which is, it never happened to UbiComp. We're also super, super excited to have a record of student attendees joining this conference. You see them on this graph as the blue one. So we wanted to keep pushing the new generation, and we're happy to see so many people joining the conference. So welcome, from everywhere, but especially if you are one of our new attendees, especially if you're a new student attending UbiComp. Not only we had a lot of students, but we had people from around the world. So we had a total of 41 different countries registering for UbiComp. You can see a spread on this chart. Most of them were from the United States. We had a large attendance from Japan, from Europe, and from China. And as I said, we are covering pretty much, I think, every continent, which it's really, really exciting for us. With that, we put together a really engaging program. We're going to hear more about that, from the program chairs in a moment, but I wanted to go through this very quickly. So as Christoph said, we were able to accept initially 12 workshops. And when we decided to go virtual, 6 of them decided to still try to do it virtually, and they actually already happened over the weekend. We had a number of people already meeting virtually, engaging in workshops, and pushing the envelope, into the future of UbiComp ISWC, even past 2020. We have 6 keynotes. We're going to hear about that. I think that's also a record. We never had 6 keynotes at UbiComp ISWC. So you're going to hear from the program chairs about that. We have 120 input talks, 21 ISWC notes and brief. And we were able to accept, despite not having an actual show and demos, 49 posters and demos. We also have an ISWC design discussion, which is a little bit different than what we usually do for the ISWC exhibit, but still very engaging. We have a gadget show, as we usually do, also very interestingly different than other years, and much, much more. So when you look at this program, you see that we laid out the different time zone on the left. We've been trying to be to serve every time zone in the world. So we split the conference in basically 2 sessions, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, for whoever is in the US. In Germany it's early, or in Europe is early afternoon and late evening, etc., etc. Hopefully we can serve you all. The program is very dense, as you see. We have 3 parallel tracks, etc., and everything will be running on Huba. We'll talk more about that in a second. We wanted to give you a glimpse of what the content will be. So thanks to one of our wonderful student volunteer, Barun, we're able to mine all of the content that you provided us, or the authors provided us, in terms of their captioning. And this is what came out. So basically, you see mostly the themes that we're going to talk about today, tomorrow, and Wednesday in the main session. And I think this makes it really, really interesting and exciting. Besides the main conference, we're going to have also a number of awards that we're going to hand out on Thursday. will be awarding member of the community with prestigious awards like the Gaetano Borriello Outstanding Student Award, the ISWC 20 Years and 10 Years Impact Award, and the ISWC Best Long Paper and Best Note Awards. So these awards have been already, already decided by the community. So we have panels of experts that have been looking at that, and they will be announced, as I said, on Thursday. However, we also have awards that you can participate in selecting. So we're going to talk more about that in a moment, but we're going to have, you will have the possibility to vote for best presentations. You will have the possibility to vote for best poster and demo. And we also have social engagement awards, both on Whova and on our social platform, GatherTown. We're going to talk about that later today after the keynote. So please go and participate. So with that, I want to hand it over to our program chairs, our UbiComp and ISWC program chairs. Sorry, I want to start with the UbiComp program chairs, Flora and Gregory, who are going to tell you a little bit about how the program changed this year.
Hello, everyone. Let's tell you a little bit about what we're going to do for the program for UbiComp ISWC this year. So I'm Gregory, and Flora and I have been working with the ISWC program chairs to organize things for this year's conference, taking the content from IMWIT and other sources to weave into the program that we're going to present. What we want to tell you a little bit about is our motivation for creating this program. So what we really want to try to do is promote more quality discussion in paper sessions. Now, when we were originally going to be in Cancun, our idea there was to have to experiment with different kind of session formats to enable different ways of presenting papers and promote discussion across different papers with different level of moderation from session chairs. So we'll try that in Cancun next year. So now Flora's going to tell you what we're doing this year in the virtual format.
Great, thanks, Gregory. So one of our ideas in that original plan was actually to try out having all short talks of all the IMWIT papers, as well as ISWC notes and brief. And we pull all the questions together at the end, but making them more interactive and engaging in a 30-minute panel discussion. So we'll keep that, and we'll have that for all our paper sessions in this virtual format. And so please make sure that you engage with all the papers and authors within the same session that you are allocated in if you're one of the authors. And what is really exciting also about this year's program is we have 6 keynote speakers. And these are actually grouped into 3 sessions. The opening panel, which will happen right after this, there are great 2 keynote speakers, and they will also engage us on a conversation on emotion AI. We have a single keynote speaker, which is more traditional, and a Q&A on dialogue research. And there will be a closing panel with 3 keynote speakers and a discourse on pandemic response. What's really exciting about UbiComp ISWC 2020 also is we will have, we'll find Best Presentation Award, and in 2 categories. The first is Judges Award, and the second is Audience Award. With the Judges Award, we will be finding 50 nominees, 1 from each session, chosen by senior members. And at the end, the PC and GC chairs will decide the final winner.
The second presentation award we're going to do lets you, the audience, make a choice. So for each session, there will be an opportunity for attendees to provide feedback, which is voting on what paper and presentation you thought was best in that particular session. You'll have up to 30 minutes after the session is over to register your vote, and you can vote for a single paper and presentation. And we hope to get a lot of you involved in providing that kind of feedback. That's all we have to offer. There's more information as a pre-recorded video at the beginning of each session, telling you how the session is going to proceed and reminding you about the Audience Award voting, but we hope you all enjoy the conference that we put together for you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you to
hello, everyone.
Sorry, thank you to Gregory and to Flora. So next, we're going to have Silvia Santini, who is the IMWIT editor-in-chief, talk to us about how the IMWIT paper have been selected and how they've been included in the UbiComp program.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to UbiComp ISWC 2020, also from my side. My name is Silvia Santini, and I am the Editor-in-Chief of PECAM Input, the proceedings of the ACM on interactive, mobile, wearable, and ubiquitous technologies. Papers can be submitted to Input at 4 deadlines a year, on February 15, May 15, August 15, and November 15. Accepted papers are published in 4 issues per year, in March, June, September, and December. Authors of papers published in Input receive an invitation to present their work at UbiComp ISWC. Already from the 2017 edition of the conference, UbiComp draws the content of its main technical tracks from Input. And I'm very proud that from 2020, this is the case also for ISWC, which decided to join the Input Journal First publication model starting from the February 2020 deadline. In the main tracks of UbiComp ISWC 2020, we are going to listen to the presentations of papers published in the last 4 issues of Input, namely issue 4 of December 2019 and issue 1, 2, and 3 of 2020. All papers published in Input undergo a very rigorous review process, about which I would like to give you some statistics. Since the very first deadline in November 2016, Input has received more than 2,600 submissions. This is on average 660 submissions per year, or 165 submissions per cycle. The actual number of submissions, however, do vary significantly from deadline to deadline, with the February and May cycle regularly drawing more than 200 submissions. Of all the papers submitted to Input, a total of 647 has been accepted and published in the journal. This corresponds to an overall acceptance rate of about 24%, although also in this case, the actual acceptance rate does vary from cycle to cycle. Of all the papers accepted in Input, 122, 18% of all accepted papers, has been accepted on initial submission, which means without a request of major revision. The remaining 82% of accepted paper is instead published after a major revision. So while the bad news is that getting a paper accepted right away in Input is fairly uncommon, the good news is that the chances of a paper being accepted after major revisions are fairly high. It is also interesting to observe that the majority of authors prefer to send their major revisions at the first resubmission deadline, and that only very few papers are never resubmitted and time out. I could go for long with more numbers and details about Input, but I would like to take the last minute of the time I'm given to say thank you to the people who actually make the journal possible. This is first and foremost the Input editors: Tanzim Choudhury, Taugu, Judy Kay, Thomas Plutz, James Scott, Jivan Hu, who work very, very hard at each deadline to run a high quality and very fast review process. I'd like, of course, also to thank the Input associate editors who read and review all the papers that are submitted to the journal and at each deadline have to cope with an endless series of requests and review reminders sent by me and the editors. A thank you goes, of course, also to the Input reviewers who volunteer at each deadline to review our papers, and to our authors, who I would like to invite and encourage to keep on submitting their best work to Input. Thank you very much for your attention, and enjoy the conference.
So thank you to Sylvia as well. I think we're going to proceed now with Jennifer and Thomas, who are going to introduce, the ISWC report.
Hello, I'm Thomas Plutz.
And I'm Jennifer Healy, and we are the ISWC program chairs.
On behalf of the program committee and the organizing committee, we would like to welcome you to the 24th International Symposium on Wearable Computers, co-located with UbiComp. This year has been unprecedented in many ways. The global COVID-19 pandemic has required organizational changes at practically all levels. The traditional in-person PC meeting had to be held entirely online, just as our conference this week is entirely virtual. However, the pandemic situation has allowed us to experiment with changing the submission deadline, which we believe has had a favorable outcome.
This year, we have implemented long-planned changes designed to solidify the unification of the ISWC and UbiComp communities by having authors of ISWC long papers Instead, submit directly to the Packham IMWIT Journal. The ISWC proceedings now exclusively comprise 4-page notes and 2-page briefs. These concise, timely, and often highly creative articles have a long-standing history in ISWC and are considered very valuable to the community. This year, we received a total of 70 paper submissions, among them 58 notes and 12 briefs. The papers had first authors from 14 countries, with a balanced representation from the Americas, Asia-Oceania, and Europe. The program committee had 25 members, representing all the major areas of wearable technology expertise. Each paper was assigned to be reviewed by 2 committee members, as well as at least 2 expert reviewers external to the committee.
The program committee meeting was held online on July 25th. In 9 short hours, the vast majority of papers were discussed and conclusions regarding acceptance and/or suggestions for improvements were formulated. The selection and classification of papers was strictly based on technical quality. Papers were accepted in 2 phases: in the submitted format with minor revisions, or after revision in consultation with a shepherd from the program committee. Some conditionally accepted papers were resubmitted in short format following the committee recommendation. The acceptance rate across all ISWC publication formats was 30%. These are challenging times. The PC chairs would like to extend their wishes for health and safety to the entire community. We are grateful for the hard work our PC members and the external reviewers put in to make ISWC 2020 happen, maintaining the scientific standards and rigor the community is proud of. Reviewing and discussing ISWC submissions is an all-volunteer program. Long hours were spent for reading submissions, writing reviews, discussing outcomes, and continuing to improve the overall quality of research presented at the conference through the shepherding process. Thank you.
Finally, thank you to the organizing committee for their dedication to producing a high-quality and complex conference, and to all of our authors for choosing ISWC. We hope that you find ISWC 2020 to be interesting, informative, and thought-provoking. Enjoy the conference.
Thank you to Jennifer and Thomas. I want to now move into our last part of this opening. As many of you are probably already aware, we are using a conference system, an app that is called Huva. And I want to introduce our wonderful online conference chair, Franceli and Alex, who worked tirelessly to make this happen over the last several weeks. And I want to thank them in advance.
Bienvenidos, mi nombre es Franceli Cibrián de la Universidad de Chapman en el sur de California, Estados Unidos.
And I'm Alex Marikakis from the University of Toronto in Canada.
And we are your online co-chairs for UbiComp ISWC 2020. This year, conference is being hosted on an event management platform called Huva. So, we would like to take a couple of minutes to explain you how can you use Huva to get the most of your conference experience. First and foremost, Huva has both a website and a mobile app. While we strongly encourage you to use the website to attend the events on your schedule, the mobile app has some functionalities that is unfortunately not available on the website. For example, you can only view the complete attendee profile on the mobile app. On the left side of the website, you can find a navigation bar that will take you to different parts of the website. The most important part of the conference is the agenda. This is where you will find a calendar of events, including the paper sessions, social events, and keynotes. Note that you can set the time to be in the conference time zone or your own time zone. When you open up a paper session or keynote, you will see an embedded Zoom webinar where you can listen to the presentations and speakers. You can go into future sessions and add them to your personal agenda so you can find them quickly later on. When you scroll down, you will find a list of the papers that will be presented along with the author's name and a row start times. To find more information about a particular paper, you can click on the title of the View Details button to the side. With that page, you can see the author's names, the link to the paper, and a YouTube video teaser if one was provided by the authors. Shortly after each session, the video at the top will be replaced with the author's pre-recorded thoughts. If you have a question about a particular paper before or after the session, you can ask them in the Q&A tools on the right side of the screen. Authors should answer this question at the earliest convenience. If you have questions for the lead Q&A panel related to the theme of the session, you should submit them in the Q&A tool on the main session page, next to the embedded Zoom player. The session's chair and the students' volunteers will only be monitoring the Q&A on this page during the live Zoom webinar. Now, I will hand it over to Alex so he can tell you about the other features that Whova provides.
Thanks, Franceli. Many of the social events will take place on a separate website called Gather Town. The mixed reality chairs have spent a lot of time creating many fun events to make up for the lack of face-to-face interaction. So we highly recommend that you attend these events when you can. You can find the links to these events in Whova, and more information will be provided during the session that introduces the social events and Gather Town after our first keynote. Now back to Whova. If you go to the Attendees tab, you can find everyone who is attending the conference or associated with a paper, unless they have explicitly hidden their presence. You could send people direct messages by clicking the Send Message button below their name. If the person is an author but has not registered for the conference, you will not be able to click this button. As mentioned earlier, full profiles cannot be viewed on the website due to Whova's design, but you can pull those up through the mobile app. We also have a community board where you can schedule virtual meetups, post job openings, share articles, or talk about how much you wish you were in Cancun this year. In the Exhibitors and Sponsors tabs, you can find more information about the wonderful organizations that have partnered with our conference this year. In the Messages tab, you can have conversations with other attendees or create groups by adding more than one person to the same message. These conversations and groups are private, and you can rename the groups as you like. Last but not least, the Logistics tab includes resources that explain the program, Whova, and Gather Town in case you need assistance. We hope that you will enjoy the networking functionality that is available in Whova.
And we trust that you will be able to find all the information about the papers and the tab you are interested in. Esperemos disfrutes UbiComp ISWC 2020.
Enjoy UbiComp ISWC 2020.
Thank you very much, Alex and Franceli. It's exciting to see everything coming together. So hopefully everybody will be able to enjoy the conference, check out Whova, and attend, please, the Gather Town introduction later today.